Hey, this is Rob Chadwick with ADL. I'm going to give a brief supplement to the previous video, which was using the Nutrition Mission game as part of our edX platform. I'm just going to show you a little bit about how the authoring tools allowed us to create that interactive experience and then integrate it with edX. I'm going to start off just on the Sandbox main site, and I'm just going to go to Worlds and then search for it, and then we'll load it and I'll show you some of the authoring tools. So let's search Nutrition. And you'll see I've got a couple of different copies. I actually duplicated the environment previously so that I had a copy I could edit here for this demo. So I'm on the main page. You'll actually notice I don't have the duplicate button down here because I'm not logged in. Let's go ahead and log in. And that'll return me back to the landing page for this world. I've got a couple of additional options. I'm going to go ahead and just launch into this world. Now you'll see the world loads up, and this GUI looks a lot like the GUI did when we were loading to actually play it within the courseware. But in this case, we're going to see something a little bit different. So we'll start and have the normal splash screen. I'm going to dismiss that. And then we'll see that I've actually got a whole different set of tools available to me here. I'm in sort of an edit camera mode. I can look at the environment from any different angle. I've got an avatar here while I'm in edit mode. That's normally not visible. And I've got a whole set of tools running across the top of the screen here. You know, if the game GUI is still available, I'm just going to pull that off so that we can work a little bit. Let me just see if I can find this div right here. I'm just going to hide that. There we go. That's probably enough. So in the environment, we have a whole suite of editing tools. Most basically, we can do things like just move entities around the environment, right? All of these objects are actually imported into the world using this tool set. So we do things like create, load mesh by URL, and then we can actually give it a URL to a 3D asset that is on our asset service. We can also search for an asset in the asset service by going to the Models tab. And I don't actually know what to search to get some of this to appear. Let's try searching for DFAC, which is a term that's in a lot of the documentation for this content. So I'm expecting that we'll see some sort of results from a repository service that are going to show all the different 3D assets that we pulled in originally to make this environment. And let's give the asset service just a moment to find the results here. Here they are, perfectly. In fact, you can see here is the industrial refrigerator, the sink, the wild rice, all the different pieces. So you import those in and they pop into the world. You can click and drag to move them around, place them where they need to be. A lot of these objects are just simple planes with textures on them. We have all the typical tools you would expect to have in a 3D modeling environment, things like material here. You actually see this material is, there it is, the scrambled eggs picture. If you can quite read this, a little bit tricky to read here, this is actually a reference over to our asset server where all the textures live. And each of these different objects has that. Some of them are not flat planes like this, but are real 3D models. Those can have more complex materials. And there it is. In order to make the game work, we have a special object over here, which is just a cube. Normally it's invisible to the player because it's behind them. That includes all of the code that drives the simulation. I'm going to open up the script editor, and you'll see a bunch of logic applied to different methods and events on this cube. This cube is called the Game Manager because it includes all of the code, which is the game code. And it has logic for things like moving the camera left and right when you click on these left-right camera buttons. Things like initializing the screen to put the camera buttons on the screen in the first place. That's where a lot of the code lives, just to manage the simulation state. There's also an invisible object floating around here. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is, perfect. Which is the camera viewpoint. Now this, let me see if I can, there we go. This camera viewpoint is moved around by some code, and you can actually see a little preview window there showing me the camera view. The camera viewpoint is moved around by some code, and that code, I believe, lives on the Game Manager object. There's also a child three-dimensional object here, which is a tray. That actually gets covered up by a 2D overlay, mostly because we just like the look of the 2D asset better. But we could also have done that as a 3D model instead of just a two-dimensional picture. So that's pretty much it. I mean, this is just a very basic intro to the tool set. I will show you sort of how we take this from the environment that we're looking at now, which is a whole bunch of tools and buttons and scripts and all that, into the thing that you saw earlier, which is kind of clean, and when you load it, you just go right into the environment and all that. You'll notice I've actually got this camera object right here selected. At the bottom of the screen it says Game Camera. So that's the name of this entity. We're going to use that later in a moment when we save this out. So the world's persistent. If I did anything in here, and I don't think I really changed anything, but if I had, when I leave, that would just save. You know that it prompts me, do I want to leave? And during that prompt, we're actually doing the save. When we're back on the main site, we'll go to Settings, and I'm going to publish this environment. When I publish it, that means, okay, we're not editing anymore. We're now playing. Also, I'm going to allow single-player anonymous users to use this environment. So when the course is embedded into the edX platform, because many different users could be playing the game at the same time, and this game isn't designed as a multiplayer experience where the different students interact with each other, we check the single player box so that every instance of the environment is a new blank copy of the game. Rather than, if we didn't check that, two different people would actually be in the DFAC line at the same time, seeing each other's trays and things like that. And that's not really how we designed this to work. I'm also going to uncheck Use Default Camera and pick the only option on the drop-down here, which is the only camera in the environment, Game Camera, as I just showed you. And then I'm going to disallow the editor tools, and I'm going to disallow creating avatars, because this is all first-person view, and there's really no point in having your avatar walking around anyway. I'll click Save. Now the game is published, and I'm going to click the Embed link here. This is going to give me just a little bit of code to copy and paste into some other system so that I can embed the game right into that system. This works exactly the way embedding a YouTube video works. We copy this and we paste it into a particular spot in the edX courseware editing system, and then there it is. It appears right on the screen in a little window. So that's it. Just a very brief introduction to how we made that all work. I think if anyone is there with you, they can put you in contact with me. My name is Rob Chadwick at ADL. And I think anyone who is there with you should be able to answer most of your questions. You can always get my contact information, and I'm happy to talk about this further if you have any questions. So thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you soon.